What's kicking? We are back for another episode of Pickin' Fights. We're going to be talking about UFC Vegas 30. Now, before I introduce my guys over here, I do just want to say you got to like and subscribe. We say it every episode. You know, the views are going up, but the subscribers really aren't as much as we would like. They're going up, but they're not really climbing as much as we would like them to. You know, how is it we get so many views on a video and not the amount of subscribers? Well, I'm telling you right now, subscribe to our channel, like this video, please and thank you. So, Tom, my co-host, as always, how are you tonight?
Yeah, I just hope people subscribe so that we can stop getting such aggressive pleas for you to tell people to subscribe. Yeah, it's getting really, really bad. Please subscribe so that Keith can stop with his pleas. Other than that, hey, listen, this card upcoming this week doesn't have a lot of big names on it, but I think there's a lot of really, really good fights. And you know, as we're heading into summer, I realize people are going to have more and more things to do on Saturday nights. So, you know, you may not necessarily be watching the fight cards as much. However, if you find yourself in a bar and you find the fight on, hey, you can, you know, be smart, tell your friends, oh, I know this guy, and all of a sudden you're impressing everyone around you. So, also, we're here to win you a little bit of money. So excited to get into it, excited to talk about them.
Yeah, we're like kind of the UFC guys whenever we go out, but if you watch our videos, then you can be the UFC guy when you go out and impress everybody around you, like Tom said. And notice this week, I wasn't as aggressive about liking and subscribing as I was the last time around. A lot more gentle, a lot more nice. So we're joined by a very special guest tonight. His name is Mitch, but some people might know him as Tom Michell out there. So, Mitch, give us a little bit of background on your history in, you know, some would call them combat sports, someone would call them theater or kayfabe, and where the name Tom Michell came from. So what's your history in this industry?
Definitely, guys. So what's going on? My name's Mitch, as Keith said. So my background is, so I joined a wrestling promotion in 2018 called Pennsylvania Premier Wrestling. It's based out of Hazleton, Pennsylvania, not too far from where Keith, you and I went to school at. And pretty much when I was there, I really just started out as like a writer, and then eventually translated into like a backstage role, where I was like on TV weekly. And I got my name Tom Michell because I was just brainstorming. I was like, man, I want to use like my last name. Like a lot of people don't know how to pronounce it. Like, you know, some people say France, some people say France. It's France, by the way. But I was like, you know what? Need something easy to roll off the tongue. And as Keith's co-host, it's a great name. So Tom Michell, it's kind of where it came from. Tom's my middle name, so it worked out.
Wow, that's crazy because Tom is also my dad's name. So we got a lot of Toms going around. Tom's all around. So,
I don't know anyone named Tom.
What?
I don't know.
That's a joke. Come on. Come on. All right. So, Mitch, I do just want to ask you this real quick. What is the craziest thing that you saw in your time at Pennsylvania Premier Wrestling? What, like, was there a weapon that somebody used? Because I know they love to break out the chairs, the bats, the hammers. What was the craziest thing that you saw?
So probably the craziest thing I saw, there was a match. So we had a couple of shows alongside Impact Wrestling, or like TNA, as some people might know them. So there was a conjoined show, and one of the matches that we had was a 6-man ladder match for like our company's title. And during the match, one guy was holding onto the title, and another dude climbed up the ladder and speared him off the title, and like he fell like 10, 15 feet. And all it is, like for like wrestling rings, like all it is like a very, very thin like wrestling mat. Then it's plywood, then it's metal. There's like not a lot of give on those wrestling mats. So they're just seeing him slam like that was pretty nuts. And then probably backstage wise, I wouldn't say it was really like a moment in the ring, but a moment I was interviewing somebody, but I met Frank Mir, a former UFC heavyweight champion.
Yes.
And me and him were talking a little bit, and he had his phone down on a chair, right? So he was like, hey, we got really poor reception down here. Like, I go upstairs and like, or like, where's like a better place to, you know, make a phone call? It's like, oh, just like go up the steps. Like there's like a little like hallway. It'd be nice and quiet. And his phone vibrated. And I guess he might have been like in a serious conversation or whatever the deal was, but I don't know what in God's name possessed me to look down at that phone. I didn't see what it said or anything like that, but we both kind of looked down and he looked up at me and he kind of just gave me those eyes where he's like, I will absolutely murder you right now in front of everybody. So like after that, like I was like, oh God, I'm the dead man walking at this point because, Frank Mir, former UFC heavyweight champion, could snap you like a twig. So that was probably the craziest thing that happened outside of the ring to me. But still, besides that, great guy. Just had the bad interaction with him at one point.
He gave you the yips for a second there. That's pretty cool, man. So
yeah.
Who was more intimidating? Was it Frank Mir or was it some of the wrestlers that you came across in your daily life there?
I would say probably Frank Mir is the most intimidating guy I ever met. Now, we brought in some, like, big, like, tall dudes, but, like, then, like, they talk and, like, they're all cool. Like, Frank Mir is the only one, like, who I've ever seen, like, kind of, like, in the wrong light, if you will. So I was, like, maybe, like, the first time in life, I'm like, oh, my God, like, I could die right now. Like, because he has that background.
That's kind of awesome. Like, yeah, I mean, it's a bad situation that you were in. Not bad, but potentially bad. But it's still awesome that you got to see this guy who, he choked dudes out, he knocked them out on their feet, and all you did was look down at his phone and he gave you the death stare, and you were like, oh, he's going to do the same thing to me that he did to everybody else. Whereas, like, the wrestling guys, it's a little bit of kayfabe going on. Maybe it's a persona that they put on. With him, you're like, this is the real deal. He's a bad dude.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, I mean, no joke. Those wrestlers are no joke, man. But, like, UFC is a whole nother animal. Like you saw with, like, CM Punk, like Brock Lesnar, of course, made the transition really well. But, I mean, it's not like oh, yeah, like I wrestle now, all of a sudden I can go to UFC. Or vice versa, because Frank Mir was actually trained to be a wrestler at the time when he came. So.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I think he actually fought at the Jake Paul, Ben Askren fight card over at Triller. I'm pretty sure he boxed in that. So, yeah, he's definitely made a transition to different stuff. And then you bring up CM Punk and Brock Lesnar. It's crazy the vast comparison between the two of them. Like, Brock Lesnar snatches the heavyweight belt from Randy Couture. And then you have CM Punk, who is just like a failed science experiment. Like, okay, let's this guy – and we'll throw him in there with actual killers while he pretended to be a killer on TV. And, that didn't really work out. Now he's sitting at home, and I think his contract is still going with the UFC, so he's just making money for no reason.
Jeez, yeah.
I think he's actually a commentator on – it might be AEW, but it's definitely a wrestling promotion.
Okay.
He's actually a commentator for, yeah. But, I mean, the thing with CM Punk, comparing him and Brock Lesnar is, number one, they were two completely different eras, and the sport was much further along when CM Punk attempted. We're talking a handful of years ago versus when Brock Lesnar did, which is we're going on like 10 years ago when that all happened. So, a little bit of a different time frame. Also, the smaller guys are a little bit more evolved in terms of skill level than the bigger guys. And then the main thing is that, like, Brock Lesnar had like a legitimate wrestling background. He was also, I think he definitely played college football. He might have went to the NFL for a little bit. This dude is a gigantic human. He has incredible strength and a solid wrestling background, in addition to just being part caveman. And then you have CM Punk.
Yeah, Brock Lesnar most definitely did play in the NFL for, I think it was one preseason game for the Minnesota Vikings. I think he played defensive end. It wasn't as impressive as you would expect from him, being a man who competed in many different sports. But still, like, yeah, he is that big, he's that athletic, and they're calling him out there to play different sports at all different levels. So, yeah, Brock Lesnar, different animal, different beast. Gotta love Brock Lesnar. I think even if you put him out there today with his background in athletics, this is a debate for another time, but if you put him out there today, I think he would still be successful. I don't know.
Depends on the level of competition you put him against.
Who knows? Maybe we should get a jump.
I don't think he's beating Francis. I don't think he's beating Stipe. But I don't know if he I don't think he beats Cyril Gane.
No, definitely not. It's a debate for another time. So we'll give the people what they're here to watch, right? Obviously, a lot of people are coming for Mitch, a.k.a. Tom Michell, but our core week-to-week fan base, whoever they are out there, they're coming to watch our picks, potentially make some money with us this week responsibly. So we're going to jump in with our prelim locks. My prelim lock this week is Julia Avila versus Julia Stoliarenko. The odds are very disparaging in this one. And, yeah, I'm taking the favorite here. So it's not really like you're going to play this one straight. This is definitely more of a parlay booster type of fight. Julia Avila is the much better fighter in this one for a couple of different reasons. She's got great hands. You know, she does a lot of like body head combos that really leave people with their hands down, and then she catches them right on the chin. She's got great technique, but the main reason I'm taking her over Julia Stoliarenko is because there was this viral clip a couple of months ago of a UFC fighter having a really bad weight cut and collapsing on like the stage, you know, where they do the weigh-ins. And that was Julia Stoliarenko. She had a miserable weight cut the last time around, obviously. And this was the fight that was supposed to happen that last time around. I could see her potentially passing out on the stage again this time. But if that doesn't happen, it's still going to be a miserable weight cut, which we know affects people's cardio really, really badly. So for all those reasons I said before, you know, you got Julia's hands plus the other Julia's bad weight cut. I think that this really spells Julia Avila. She's coming in at minus 365 on some books. Not great. You're not going to take that straight up. But definitely throw that in with your parlay. That's a nice little boost that will help your night out. You know, say you're going like 3 guys on your parlay and you're like, all right, what do I throw in there next? I don't feel comfortable with 3. Or you want to just throw someone in there. Julia Avila is your girl in this one. Tom, do you have any for us?
Yeah, I actually do have one for you. Give me 1 second. Let me pull up my my notes so I get across what I want to get across. Kennedy Nzechukwu versus Danilo Marquez. I think Kennedy Nzechukwu is better on the feet than Danilo Marquez is. I don't think you'd be hard pressed to find somebody to agree with me there. That's it's pretty across the board well-known thing. Danilo Marquez's strength is on the ground. Here's the thing. Kennedy Nzechukwu, his previous fight was against Paul Craig. Paul Craig, yes, he did get tapped out by him in the 3rd round, but prior to that takedown, Paul Craig was 0-15, and then he got the 16th attempt. So Kennedy had denied 15 of 16 attempts by Paul Craig, who we saw just have a great win against John Mahal Hill. Took him down with absolute ease and just demolished, just ripped apart the guy's arm with seemingly without even trying. It was very, very quick. He showed an absolute command of the takedown game, the ground game. He could be one of the best at that weight in terms of ground game. And Kennedy Nzechukwu was able to deny 15 of 16 takedowns from him. Granted, sure, Paul Craig had gotten better in between that time, but that's still a mind-boggling statistic and point for Kennedy Nzechukwu. So I don't think Danilo Marquez is going to be able to take him down or take him down as much. I think Kennedy's going to have more time on the feet, and I think Kennedy Nzechukwu is going to take this one either by maybe a late TKO or more probably a decision.
Yeah, I was a little bit skeptical about Nzechukwu before you mentioned those points, but to deny almost every single takedown from a guy like Paul Craig, who's just, yeah, you mentioned it, he's an absolute beast. He took down Jamal Hill and he was on his back, wrapped up Jamal Hill's leg and arm with his legs and was still beating him up. And then, yeah, you see Jamal Hill afterwards. Mitch, I don't know if you saw this, but it was where the guy got his arm snapped and it looked like a piece of spaghetti just hanging there afterwards. It was.
I think I remember seeing that, yeah.
Brutal. Yeah, that was 2 weeks ago at UFC 263. It was something else to watch. So I was a little bit skeptical about Nzechukwu going into this one. But after you bring that up, it's very clear that he is a much better fighter than a lot of people are giving him credit for. Mitch, what are your thoughts on our locks? We got Julia Avila and Kennedy Nzechukwu. Are you going to be rolling with us on those?
I think the Julia Avila one is very solid for the points that you brought up. I didn't even put the comparison together that the other Julia was the one who was struggling so much with the weight cut that she was passing out. But with Kennedy also sounds like a really solid pick just because of his, like you said, his takedown defense just is otherworldly. And 15 denials of the takedown is pretty absurd. I mean, ultimately, yeah, he didn't win his last fight, but that just, that makes you even hungrier for your next win because if after a while, like if you keep losing, like you're getting the boot. So I feel like he's feeling like that good pressure to definitely try to pull a victory.
Yeah, that's a solid way to put it for sure. And that Stoliarenko clip, that's going to live in my memory forever. I know a lot of people saw that because it wasn't like a super hyped up fight going into it the last time. But like when I say passed out, she literally looked like she died on the scale. It was crazy. So we're going to jump into the main. Oh, yeah. What do you got, Tom?
Also add in here, this fight between Kennedy Nzechukwu and Danilo Marquez. Danilo Marquez is coming in at 6'6" with a 77.5-foot reach. So big guy, 35 years old. And then Kennedy's coming in here at 29 years old, 6'5", still big guy with an 83-inch reach. So he's got a 5.5-inch reach advantage as well, in addition to being the better striker and the younger guy, more closely entering his prime. I have him at plus money on a couple books. Also, he's the favorite in some others. So if you can get this guy for plus money, I would absolutely hammer it.
Yeah, that definitely seems like a really enticing line. I'm definitely ripping that one, going with you on Kennedy Nzechukwu. So we're going to jump into the main card now. The first one that we have here is Renato Moicano versus Jai Herbert. And this was a tough one for me to get a definitive pick on, mostly because both of these guys, I just don't trust either of them. Both of their chins seem to be pretty dismantled at this point. One of them is going to be needing a wire shut at some point soon in the near future. So, Tom, I'm going to let you kick this one off. Who are you feeling in this one?
Why do you always kick it to me, to the ones that I don't have notes on?
I don't have many notes on them either.
So that's why. Listen, yeah. All right, so we got Jai Herbert. He's got a 6-inch reach advantage. I am always usually a big fan of the guys with the reach advantages, although he's a little bit less seasoned when it comes to fighting in the UFC. Let me pull him up. Let's see what Tapology has to say about these guys. It says that Renato Moicano is definitely a lot higher ranked in the worldwide welterweight or light heavyweight standings. Sorry, lightweight standings. That being said, he fights out of American Top Team. The people on Tapology seem to take Moicano by 79%. That's 1,173 people. 79% say Moicano, the majority of which think a decision. When we look at OddsShark, it looks like Moicano, the minus 190 favorite at the smallest, minus 235 at the heaviest. I would have to lean Renato Moicano, not knowing too much about these ones.
Yeah, this is definitely a tough one. I think I'm gonna lean with Moicano as well. With those odds being what they are, though, because I'm seeing minus 245 in some places as well. That's a tough one for me to say, let me take this one straight. And I don't really trust him enough to put him in my parlay and potentially bring that down for the night. So, yeah, I'm going to lean towards Moicano here. I have a feeling he'll pull out the W for all those reasons that you listed. I mean, a 6-inch reach advantage is absurd. That's half a foot that he's going to have on Jai Herbert. That's a whole half a foot that he's going to be able to stand back and just potentially whale some strikes on him. So, yeah, I'm definitely leaning towards Renato Moicano in this one.
Listen, Renato Moicano, I mean, just to look back at his past wins, he's got win over Jeremy Stevens, lost to Brian Ortega, beat Calvin Kattar, beat Cub Swanson, lost to Jose Aldo, lost to Chan Sung Jung, the Korean zombie we just saw came out good, beat Damir Hazovic, lost to Rafael Fiziev, and then now he's fighting Jai Herbert. Jai Herbert, we go back and we look at his last fight, was a loss against Francesco Trinaldo. So I'm all aboard the Jai Herbert train, and if you can get him, a little bit closer to, if you can get him at minus 190 or anything, maybe a little bit less, maybe take him by TKO, or parlay that one with, him and the fight being done by finish or not going the distance. I think you could definitely win some money with that bet.
You mean to say you're on the Moicano train, right? You said you're on the Jai Herbert train.
Sorry, yeah, I'm on the Moicano train.
Yeah, because Moicano has definitely fought way better competition in his career.
Yes.
Starting off with, guys going up for the belt, guys that have in the past. So, Yeah, definitely feeling Moicano here. That fight history just makes me feel that much more confident, and I'm still not enough to say, okay, I'm putting all the chips on him right now, but yeah, I'm leaning on him more than Moicano here. So, Mitch, after hearing all that, what are your thoughts on this fight? Who are you rolling with?
Yeah, I really, as you guys mentioned, I probably wouldn't put this one like in a parlay if I was creating a parlay. There is a significant reach advantage, but it seems like a bunch of other categories, it's more of a push. Moicano does sound like the favorite, by like, what is it, minus 200 or so in most books. So, I mean, if you're feeling confident about the fight, like I would put your money there, but I wouldn't and like put in like a parlay and like that'd be the one that messes you over in the parlay, because it is really like an up in the air fight, even though Moicano does have the advantage.
Yeah, that's definitely a tough one. But yeah, I'm definitely leaning towards Moicano. So all three of us are going with Renato Moicano here. Next up, we got Tim Means versus Nicholas Dalby. So I'll kick this one off. Off rip. Dalby doesn't throw enough volume compared to Means. Means throws a lot of strikes. And Dalby is more of like a sit back and wait. He tries to be a counter striker, but that hasn't really been super successful for him in the past. Means has great boxing compared to Dalby. Much, much better in those aspects. And Dalby has massive holes in his striking game, including just taking straight jabs like right on the chin. He opens himself up to a lot of those shots. Tim Means has good submission games. And one thing I noticed about Dalby going back and watching his fights is like he seems unsteady on his feet before he even gets hit. Like he's a very weird, wobbly type of guy. And I don't like that for him personally. I feel like if he went with more of like a boxing approach, at least with his stance going forward, that would probably help him out quite a bit. Instead, he's more so like swaying around a lot. Doesn't really leave him with good head movement because like if you're already starting off swaying, you're not really moving your head as much as you would like to out of the way of strikes, at least in most cases. So I'm rolling with Tim Means here. He's coming in at minus 140. I kind of like that line. It's enough for me to take him straight. Not really confident enough to throw him in a parlay. That's opposed to Nick Dalby, who's coming in at plus 110, which is an enticing underdog line. But I'm rolling with Tim Means here. Tom, what do you got?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Dalby was cut from the UFC. Now he's back. Tim Means a little, he also was, but much further, he's longer removed from that. Dalby is just recently back. Both of his no contests on his record. This is Dalby. Both of the no contests on his record are actually losses. Means can throw, like you were saying, the straight punches down the pipe, which combats that wild style, that looping style of Dalby. Means has a really good chin. And he's technical and he's composed while Dalby's kind of the opposite. He's kind of wild. I really don't think this fight's going to have much time on the ground. If it does, that just plays further towards the Dirty Bird. The Dirty Bird Tim Means, that is. This is potentially a fight of the night contender for me. But you look at some of the past guys that Tim Means has fought. He's got wins most recently over Mike Perry, which was a dominant performance, a unanimous decision over 3 rounds. Laureano Staropoli, he won another unanimous decision. And we see Staropoli now starting to move up and fight bigger guys in the rankings. He has a loss to Daniel Rodriguez. He got guillotined, so he got submitted in that fight. And, Daniel Rodriguez is rising to be in the top of the division. He's a very good fighter. Tim Means wins over Thiago Alves, lost to Nico Price, who also another solid guy. He had delivered a very good performance against Cowboy Cerrone not too long ago. Tim Means lost to Bilal Muhammad. So he's losing to guys with legitimate names. But when it comes to fights that he really should win, he usually does win, and he does that on the back of his experience. So I really expect Tim Means to come out here and get a fight this week, get a win this weekend in the fight. Jesus Christ.
I really agree with you on all those points. Don't beat yourself up too much, Tom. It's all right. But yeah, I definitely agree with you on all that. I'm taking Tim Means here. Mitch, what are you thinking after all that?
I feel like I'm just really agreeable right now, but you guys both bring up great points towards Tim Means. I got some numbers pulled up actually, and Tim Means, he lands way more strikes per minute. He has a better striking percentage, and even though Dalby has an advantage in the takedown department, he's just averaging more takedowns. It's still like Tim Means the taller fighter. He's a more experienced fighter. He has more quality wins. All those factors, just I think Tim Means would definitely be a solid pick here.
Yeah, that, those numbers that you brought up, I mean, that really just goes back to the volume that Means throws over Dalby. It's just, he's almost inactive when he's in there in the octagon. It's kind of scary. Like, why aren't you throwing punches? You're in a UFC fight.
Let it be known that Dalby is the 58% favorite on Tapology with 1,111 votes. So that's might be lucky. But 58% of those people are taking Dalby. 85% of that 58 is by decision. On the other hand, you have 42% picking Means, 73% by decision. So if you're going to listen to Tapology, you may want to take this fight to go the distance. And I still think Tim Mean wins there. I think he's the more technical striker. I think he's got a proven gas tank. He's been proven against better competition. He wins the fights, generally speaking, that he should win. I like Tim Means.
Yeah, and if you want to follow Tapology, you can. But if you've listened to me talk on here before, you know what I like to do. I like to fade the public in those types of situations. And it's not like it's overwhelming like the public on Tapology is leaning towards Dalby in this one, but it's just enough to make me feel that much better. So next up, we have Andre Fili versus Daniel Pineda. I like Andre Fili here. Just off rip, he's the bigger guy here. He's just naturally bigger. And he's got an incredible defense for leg kicks. A lot of people are saying this over the past couple fights that he's had, but Andre Fili really knows how to check the leg kick like no other, really. Doesn't really work out for Pineda because if you look at his numbers, he relies heavily on the leg kicks. So this is going to be a challenge for Pineda. He's not going to be able to use one of his favorite moves, and we've seen what happens when you check a leg kick perfectly in the UFC. I'm not going to say anything crazy is going to happen like that, but we've seen what can happen. You can do more damage to yourself if you go for a leg kick that's then checked as opposed to if you would have just landed it. So you also got Andre Fili, who's come across like massively different styles in his career. He's fought not incredible boxers, but guys that rely heavily on boxing, guys that rely heavily on Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And I just don't see Pineda bringing a challenge to him because at this point, Fili's seen it all. And Pineda has to cut a lot of weight for this fight. We mentioned it before. You have a weight cut that's like extreme. Well, what's it going to damage? It's going to damage your gas tank. You're going to gas out harder than my truck. My truck is really bad on gas. Not great in this economy right now, but, what are you going to do? Bad cardio guys are the fighters that Andre Fili consistently beats. He knows when you're tired. He knows how to put the pressure on you. So, and for a guy like Pineda, who he gets tired, he starts mouth breathing and survival breathing, and then he tries to put the pressure on more, I guess, because he's like, oh, I'm tired. Let me go for it now because this guy knows I'm tired. Well, that's not going to work out well against a guy like Andre Fili. Tom, what are you thinking here?
I'm kind of just echoing what you're saying. Andre Fili, he's a big featherweight, and he has good leg kick defense. And leg kicks are really Daniel Pineda's specialty. Fili has the range. He has the length advantage. Pineda cuts a lot of weight, and he has notably bad cardio. He's really a threat for the first minute to 4 minutes, of the first round. After that, he really just kind of falls off a cliff. He can KO you or sub you, but it's really, again, going to be in that first initial part of the fight. And he's really not much of a threat after that. And at 36, I really don't see him getting all that better with his cardio and his fight longevity. I don't see that getting drastically better as you get older. That's generally something that declines as you get older. I'll take Fili in a decision, but, I think maybe you could check the odds for Pineda first round KO. That might be worth a sprinkle because I really only see this fight either being a Fili decision. He's a decision fiend. I think Andre touches Fili will win by decision. The only other outcome is going to be Pineda by a KO in the first round. So you might want to check what that combination is, getting you odds-wise and sprinkle a little something on there.
Yeah, those are two really good picks there. It could go either way. Just feeling my guy more. So, Mitch, what are you thinking there?
So there, I think Pineda, as you mentioned, he is like a knockout artist, pretty much. But he also has 41 career fights under his belt, so he's very seasoned, almost to like a fault. So I would say like he's definitely on the back nine of his career. I think Fili is a little younger, has like advantages in places you want to have advantage, such as like reach, height, things like that nature. So I'd give the edge to Fili here.
Yeah. All right. So we're all going with, well, Tom's kind of like, all right, here's your two props so we can go with. But, Tom, if you had to pick one guy, who are you going with here?
I would pick Andre Fili to win for sure. And when you look at Tapology, 89% have him winning. 73% of those folks are by decision. The other 20% or so is by KO, TKO. No one really picking him by submission. On the other side, Pineda, 11% are putting their money on him and spread pretty evenly between submission, decision, and TKO. That's out of about roughly 1,200 people. So it looks like everybody's feeling Fili. Andre Fili, rather. So that's why I would pick Fili to win, but maybe sprinkle a little bit on Pineda for first round knockout.
All right, yeah, I like that one there. So next up, we got Raoni Barcelos. He's coming in at minus 225, just about, versus Timur Valiev, plus 175. Now, when I hear a guy getting hyped up as much as Barcelos, it kind of makes me a little bit skeptical. I've been hearing a lot of people calling him like a young Jose Aldo or the second coming of Jose Aldo. It doesn't make me that confident in him personally because, like, you know, last week I had Julian Erosa, who a lot of people were saying was like a young Anthony Pettis. Well, there's only one Jose Aldo. There's only one Anthony Pettis. And I don't really know if Raoni Barcelos is really the next Jose Aldo. You know, and then I look at Timur Valiev. He was very promising before he came to the UFC. In his last fight, he was winning early on, and then he ended up losing the fight as it went on. I still think, though, Timur has a way better shot in this fight than a lot of people would have you believe. Maybe this is a bit of a, you know, let's see who's the better guy, who we're going to go with going forward. And odds are, you know, if you're looking at the Vegas bookmakers, and I'm sure if you're looking at Tapology, a lot of people are going with Barcelos, but fortune favors the bold, and I like to fade the public. For no other reason than that, I'm going to go with Timur Valiev here. No true logic behind this pick whatsoever. He's coming off a kind of bad loss. I think that he's going to start putting things together, and this might be the fight where it happens. So I'm going to roll with that underdog money, just sprinkle a little bit. By no means is this a lock. It's almost even like a semi-pick, but I will be sprinkling a little bit on that plus 175 money line for Valiev. Tom, I'm sure you're going to tell me why I'm wrong now, so let's hear it.
Listen, I kind of agree with you in a lot of like respects. This is a fight that Raoni Barcelos should win, but really it's going to be a very, very close fight, and it has a lot of fight of the night potential. I know a lot of people are picking Raoni, and you know Raoni beat Saeed Nurmagomedov, and I think he's the more well-rounded and the more experienced, more seasoned fighter than Timur Valiev is. But Valiev looked worse in his second fight than he did in his first, even though he actually did get the win in the second fight. It was a win over Martin Day, and at the end of the day, Martin Day didn't get a win in the UFC over his 5-fight stretch. So a win over him, what is that really saying? And you also have a no contest over Trevin Jones, which maybe should have been a win. But again, that was Trevin Jones' first fight. So, you know, we just really don't know too much as far as inside the octagon, the UFC octagon, that is, for Timur Valiev. Raoni Barcelos, he's got, on the other hand, a lot of fights and a lot of wins inside the UFC. This will be his 6th fight, and he's got wins over guys with the last name Nurmagomedov. So I think that means a lot for him. He's got a KO win with elbows. He got a submission win. He's got a KO with punches. He's got 2 unanimous decisions. He's shown he can do it all. I think Raoni Barcelos is the safe pick. But again, on a lot of books, he's minus 230. So, you know, You said fortune favors the bold. Can Timur Valiev pull off an upset and bounce back from looking increasingly worse over his first 2 UFC fights and win you some money at plus 180? Potentially. When you look at the Tapology voters, you have 84% on Barcelos, 77 of that by decision. Valiev is 16%, 72% of that by decision. I think this is going to be a decision. You're going to put money on the over. I think it's a really, really hard fight to call because these guys are very evenly matched. But, yeah, I guess I'll go Barcelos.
Okay,
Yeah, I'll go Barcelos.
So we finally have one pick where we're going against each other here, and I totally respect that pick. You know, there's part of me that's like, come on, man, are you dumb? Take Barcelos. But at the same time, I think this man Timur has a chance to pull it off. So, Mitch, which one of us are you going to go with here?
Man, I've been sitting here this whole time. I was like, keep bringing up a good point about Valiev. And I was like, oh, wait, but Barcelos is also a very good fighter, too. I literally just been sitting here just, like, listening. I was like, man, like, this is going to be a good one. I really do think this potential fight of the night. When you look at the raw numbers, 5'7", 5'6". They both land about the same number of significant strikes per minute. One key area where Valiev has the advantage, though, is the accuracy of his strikes. He is at nearly 75% compared to about 57% for Barcelos. So that's really the only thing that I see in the advantage. But as you mentioned, Valiev has not been in UFC quite as long. So I'm going to have to give the edge here to Barcelos. But I think this will get a distance. And this is another fight that I'm like, I want to throw this in a parlay. Maybe the over on total rounds because this does have fight of the night potential.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Yeah, definitely a potential for the over in this one, just looking at their fight history. Yeah, tough one to pick. I totally get why you're going with Barcelos here. No hate on this pick whatsoever. It's just, I kind of feel like we're due for an upset. There's an upset on every card. And if you keep up with the MMA community, it feels like people are writing Valiev off. And when that happens, sometimes that guy can turn around and win it. So
But don't get me wrong. This is a close fight where everybody's writing one guy off completely. You look at everyone who's picking, almost all of them are picking Raoni, Barcelos. I might want to pick Timur Valiev just because of that. Like, just on that. I'm going to stay with Raoni and go, I guess, the smart decision and not the ballsy decision. Props to you for doing that. But it's a very close one. That's why I said I think you're better off betting that the fight goes the distance than you are like picking a potential winner.
Yeah, that's definitely your best bet here. I will be staking a little bit on that over. So next up, we got Vince St. Pro. Did I say his first name right, Tom?
Yes, but you said his last name wrong. Vince St. Pro.
St. Pro. Okay. Yeah, those names, they got the E, U, X. That's confusing. Maybe if I lived down in Louisiana and said go Tigers like that all the time, that would work out a little bit more for me. But
Go Tigers.
Yeah, that's an unfamiliar name. I mean, I usually just call him OSP, so I'll roll with that. We got OSP versus Tanner Boser. OSP coming in as the underdog at plus 142. Tanner Boser coming in at minus 172. St. Pro. How do you say St. Pro? OSP. OSP is very scared after his loss to Ben Rothwell. There's no denying that. Ben Rothwell is a guy that, if you've been watching for a while, I love Ben Rothwell. It's kind of hard not to like Huggy Bear. But Ben Rothwell, let's be real, he's a little bit older, and he's not facing, the best opponents out there in the UFC. In his last fight, he fought that little karate guy that was 5'6", jumping around all over the place with the crazy haircut. Can't even remember his name at this point. Ben Rothwell, a great fighter, just not getting top quality opponents. The fact that he was able to beat OSP the way that he did, very impressive for Ben, because OSP was very hyped up for a while there. OSP, his chin took a lot of damage in that fight. He's gotten finished a lot recently. And, after you get punched in the chin so many times and punched in the face and knocked out on your feet, TKO'd, that chin suffers a lot of long-term damage. And I feel like that's happening for OSP right now. He looks pretty slow since his move up to heavyweight as well. And that's coming against a guy like Tanner Boser, who doesn't really move like a lot of other heavyweights. He's very slick on his feet. Punches come in quick. So I think that Boser has a lot of great combos that are going to expose OSP's hesitance. And then one thing we do have to pay attention to as well is that Tanner Boser feels like in his last loss he got robbed. So he's going to come in with a vengeance in this one. So I really like him against OSP here. I just think you're going to see a very cautious OSP that's sitting back heavily, maybe waiting to try and counter, but he's just not that guy. And Tanner Boser is going to walk him down, pursue him. Could end in a knockout for Tanner Boser. I just think the aggression that he's coming in with, plus the skill level, plus the speed, plus the cardio that he has as well, is going to spell success for Tanner Boser here. Minus 172. Don't really hate it. Don't hate it straight up. Don't love it either. Definitely throwing it in my parlay, though. Tom, what do you think?
This one's another toss-up. It's really hard to call. So you have Tanner Boser at 29. You have OSP at 38. You have them roughly the same height. Obviously, Boser's probably going to be the bigger guy, being that he's been a heavyweight for longer. And this is OSP's first fight at heavyweight, coming up from light heavyweight. Although he's going to have about a 4.5-inch reach advantage over Tanner Boser. OSP, he's been very hesitant lately because basically he just knows his chin sucks, like you said, Keith. And Tanner is big, and he's mad about his last loss to Ilir Latifi, which he probably doesn't even think is a loss. He thinks it's more just he got held on and out-wrestled. He probably doesn't even think he got out-wrestled. He probably just thinks Ilir Latifi just kind of hung on him for Jesus. That was a terrible struggle of trying to get through that sentence. Tanner Boser thinks that Ilir Latifi just basically laid it all over him for the majority of the fight, and he did, outland him about 4-1 when it comes to actual strikes. So Tanner Boser is pissed. Ilir Latifi had actually beaten OSP in the past, and I bet you Tanner Boser feels that he could beat Ilir Latifi if he fought him again, so he thus feels like he could beat OSP. And OSP's in the last leg of his career. He has trained with the guy he was training for, because Tanner Boser stepped in on this on a short notice. But the guy that OSP was training for has a very similar skill set to Tanner Boser. Now, Tanner Boser, he's pissed, he's motivated, he's skilled, and on top of that, he's younger. And I guess you could say, being 29, he's kind of in his heavyweight prime, or at least on his way there. Like I said earlier, this is a first fight at heavyweight for OSP. However, OSP was training with a guy with stiff punches and stiff leg kicks, very similar style to Tanner Boser. Boser took it on short notice. He had said to the UFC, let me fight out the last fight of my contract in July. Said that he didn't care if he loses, he'll just walk away. And then they give him a fight in June when he had just fought. How soon was his last fight? Against Ilir Latifi, June 5th. So he's fighting on 3 weeks' notice. Not 3 weeks' notice. 3 weeks removed from a fight where he did get laid on. He got beat on the ground. Not terribly, but you got to wonder if some of that is going to affect him in this fight. Going through a weight cut, coming back, going through a weight cut. Granted, he weighs in at 242, but there's got to be some aspect of, that fight week that takes something out of him, going up to the fight, actually being in the fight, all of that. Maybe he didn't get that hurt, and this 3-week turnaround is actually going to be a good thing for him. But, Boser said that he wants to basically just fight this last fight on his contract, and if he loses, he'll walk away. Kind of a loser-go-home fight with OSP being 38 years old and, on a fairly decent, he's lose-win. By that metric, he should win. It's going to be a really, really close fight. Looking at OddsShark, Tanner Boser minus 135 to minus 175. OSP plus 115 to 150 on some books. The people on Tapology have this one kind of split. 63% of the 1,140 voters, 63% say Boser, 42% by decision, 53% by KO, 0% by submission. And then you have the inverse, 37% picking Ovant, same proof, 45 by decision, 33 by submission, and 15 by TKO. I wanna pick Boser. Tanner the Bulldozer Boser. especially coming off 2 losses. I don't think he's going to want to lose again. I think he's going to be highly motivated. I think he is skilled. You know, I did pick him, I think, to beat Ilir Latifi. But I don't know. This is the one that I feel, hey, this might be OSP. Going after a guy who is overly emotional, aggressive, just fought 3 weeks ago, potentially could have some lingering issues. He did go 3 full rounds with Latifi. 3 weeks is a really, really quick turnaround. And I think it might end up hurting Tanner Boser. I think I might go OSP here.
Yeah, you might have convinced me. And you jogged my memory a little bit. Excuse me. Oof. Gotta clear my throat real quick. Okay. Tanner Boser is from Canada. And one thing that we failed to mention before, and it's kind of one thing that's really pushing me in the OSP direction now, is that Tanner Boser flew back to Canada. And when he got there, he had to quarantine for 2 weeks. So 2 of those 3 weeks since his last fight were actually spent like probably in a hotel room, not training.
And then now fight week is spent in a hotel room.
Yes, but that's also with your full staff of trainers, getting ready for the fight, cutting weight. You're in that full fight mentality. He did expect to fight soon, but not as soon as June. Oh, I'm a poet and I didn't even know it. Nice. Yeah, he didn't expect to fight as soon as June. So there could be, was he just like vegetating and marinating in that hotel room for 2 weeks? This is tough. This is really, really tough. And yeah, those emotions, the anger looks good going in, but at the same time, he might just be that kid that takes his ball after he loses and goes home, This is so hard. This is really so hard. Well, I may change up my pick last minute after the show. So I do just want to say follow us all on Twitter. Got to plug that real quick. I think I'm going to switch it over to OSP. I might change back to Tanner Boser as it gets closer. But, Tom, you convinced me. You jogged my memory a little bit. I'm switching over to OSP. I don't like that quick turnaround for Tanner Boser, especially when 2 weeks were spent in quarantine. They take quarantine pretty serious in Canada, so it's not like he had his training staff coming in there with him, getting him ready for a fight that he didn't even know was happening. He thought he had a whole other month. So who knows? Maybe he was just chilling out in that hotel bed, or maybe he was at home, but he wasn't able to be as active as he wanted to be. So, yeah, I'm flipping it up. I'm going for OSP. OSP's a little bit older. He's got that name. Sounds close to GSP, so people love to say it. They could be setting up OSP for, because he's getting close to the end of his contract as well and has a couple of losses, if I'm not mistaken, in recent memory. So, yeah, I think maybe they're putting him out there against an angry, unfit guy. I'm going with OSP here.
Check this out. A guy named Paul Craig has a win or a loss to a guy named Alonzo Menefield. Alonzo Menefield lost to OSP. OSP lost to Jamal Hill. Jamal Hill lost to Paul Craig. None of this makes any sense.
Yeah, MMA math. Yeah, but I do like that win over Paul Craig. Paul Craig's definitely gotten better. This is a tough one, but I'm going with OSP. Might switch up.
OSP has a win over the guy who has a win over Paul Craig, but lost to the guy who just lost to Paul Craig.
Right. I mean, don't get me wrong. I had Jamal Hill going into that one.
Jamal Hill outstruck him and TKO'd him in the second round with punches.
Yeah, that's tough. Oh, man, this is a really, really, really hard one. And I know Mitch is going to have a hard time making a decision.
But also all of those fights were at light heavyweight, and now we're fighting at heavyweight.
Yeah. Oh, man.
He has a split decision loss against Ben Rothwell, and I believe that was a heavyweight fight. Well, if it was against Ben Rothwell, it definitely was.
I'm stumped. I don't know which way to go. There's a fork in the road, and I don't know which one to take.
Check this out. This isn't OSP's first fight at heavyweight.
Right.
His first fight back at heavyweight. Having a previous win over Ben Rothwell, I think Ben Rothwell is a solid win when you look at what you can do from both a striking perspective and a wrestling perspective.
Yeah, all right. I'm going to roll with OSP here, but, I may switch that up going forward. So follow on Twitter. Also, if you haven't already, pickandwinners.org. That's where I post, like, my last-minute blog with all my picks. Saturday morning, you never know what happens. People miss weight. Somebody catches the COVID. So, yeah, for now, OSP. May switch it up going forward. Tough one. Real tough one. I mean, part of me is like, I'm going to go back to Boser real quick. I don't even know. I'm so split on this one. Mitch, maybe you'll be the deciding argument here. You seem very knowledgeable so far. I could definitely tell you know what you're talking about, and you got the stats up in front of you. So what do you think about OSP versus Tanner Boser?
You see, before I realized about the quarantine and the 3-week turnaround, I was like, Tanner Boser, no doubt. Like, he's the bigger guy. He's obviously been heavyweight, and making the jump from light heavyweight to heavyweight, even though OSP has done before, it's not easy. It's not like you're jumping up 15 pounds or like 10 pounds like you are in some other divisions. This is a 40-pound weight difference, like between light heavyweight and heavyweight. And Boser weighs in at 255 usually, so even if OSP gets to 245, he's still giving up 10 pounds. But with the whole quarantine, it's really just an unpredictable factor because was Boser in there the whole time, just like sitting on his bed, just dwelling, just like, oh my God, is my next fight my last? Or was he consistently moving, like trying to do what he could in his room and like zooming with his training staff and just trying to see what he can do? So there's just a lot of unpredictable factors that like we don't have like the information about that makes it hard to judge this fight and say who could win. Granted, I still am not a fan of OSP's age, or the fact he has 40 fights under his belt. I feel like, even though Tom, you mentioned it's like win-loss, like he's like, by that theory, like it should be a win for OSP. I still think I gotta go with Boser here, and I just think that the weight difference is just gonna be a difficult task for OSP to make. That's a big thing, because unless OSP gets him on the ground the whole time, which I think it's more difficult when you're, with a bigger man like Tanner Boser is. That's really OSP's best shot because he's not going to outstrike Boser. So but like at the same time though, it's like, man, like it's only been 3 weeks between fights, but I'm sick of my gut here. My gut's been telling me Tanner Boser this whole time, so I'm gonna roll with Tanner Boser.
Yeah, wow. All right, Mitch, you kind of swayed me back in the Boser direction. This is so hard.
That's what she said.
Yeah, good one, Mike Scott. All right, look, I don't know which way to go. This is really, really difficult. It's like I'm driving out in an area I've never been to before, and I forgot my GPS at home, or my phone has no signal, and I'm just lost. I'm very lost here. So, Tom, we're going to have to hold off on me making my true pick. Right now I'm leaning towards OSP, but then
No, you can't do that. You got to make a pick. Come on, make a pick.
Hey, Siri, flip a coin.
Oh, my God.
It's tails. I'm going with Tanner Boser.
You didn't even say which one was which before she flipped a coin. It's all rigged.
I had it in my head.
I'll move up in the rankings when OSP wins.
Well, I also couldn't let Mitch be the first guy that picks against both of us.
Oh, man, that's okay. I'm willing to be a black sheep. I don't want you to change your picks just for me, man. There's just too many factors for me that point towards Boser. Because I really do believe he's hungry, he's motivated. He really does have that, like, well, this could be my last fight mentality, which, as you mentioned, though, like, could always be a bad thing. You'd be fighting with your heart and not with your brain. But I just think the much bigger guy, the younger guy, the more in his prime guy, just has more of an advantage in the end.
Yeah, I'm rolling with you on those factors, man. And the other thing is, too, even if he was sitting at home doing nothing, he's still a heavyweight. Like, I don't even know if there's a weight ceiling on that, so it's not like he was just some, like, lightweight getting out of shape eating McDonald's or something like that. He could have been doing that, but he's still a heavyweight. He's still kind of a fat guy at his core. So,
yeah, I mean, listen, I think this is a, as you said, Keith, literally a toss-up fight. So, like, if you're out there and you're like, well, who should I bet on? Like, I would say don't bet on this one. I think it's too close to call. But we have a show where we pick the winners and who we think are going to win. My gut is actually telling me Tanner Boser, but I'm telling you, I'm just really nervous about that flight thing, the 3 weeks, the turnaround time, the fact that, you know, granted, we know he's skilled, but he does have some losses, and, you know, maybe that eats away at him being over emotional. I think OSP is kind of even keel either way. I think he knows he's had a long career as a contender, but I don't think he's planning on making a run, but it's fun to play spoiler. Like, I don't know. I want to pick OSP because it feels cool and sexy, but I feel like my gut's telling me to pick Tanner Boser, but I want to feel sexy, so I'm picking OSP.
I feel sexy. Yeah, you are an OSP. You're an overly sexy person, so I get that pick. All right, so next up for the main event, we got Cyril Gane versus Alexander Volkov. Now, this is one that I do have a lot of notes for, and I do have someone picked out, but Tom, I know you're very passionate about these two fighters, so I'm going to let you kick it off.
Yeah, I was really close. I was very torn really up until about an hour before we picked the show. And then I started watching tape on both guys and realized that, oh, wait, there really does seem to be a clear athletic and striking advantage. And I have to give that to Cyril Gane. Listen, Volkov, he's much more experienced with fighting, especially in an octagon. His game is very consistent. His game is very evolved. And he's good at what he does. And more importantly, you know what he's going to do to you. Gane, he's got very good footwork. He's athletic. He's got power. He's got speed. He's got a very solid ground game that he showed in his debut fight. He's also from the same camp and team that brought you Francis and Gane. Gane's not going to take him down because Volkov, he's got solid takedown defense, and he throws elbows because he's got the length and he's got a really wide base. However, Gane is 6'4". He may even be a little taller than that, 6'5". So Volkov is not going to have the height or the reach advantage that he normally has. Cyril Gane actually has a longer reach than Volkov has. So Gane definitely needs to watch out for Volkov's like front kick, which he throws out kind of like a jab and hurts people. It gets them right under the ribs. We saw him do it against Walt Harris. We saw him do it against Greg Hardy. He's really good for keeping space. He'll try to use it to keep Cyril Gane from moving, and he'll try to control the center of the cage while Cyril Gane's on the outside, on his toes like we always see him coming in. He is in more of a karate stance. He's more in a sideways stance, so it's going to be hard for Volkov to kick his leg because I think he's going to be going back and forth. This could be a decent preview to, you know, maybe just to see that karate stance again and see how useful it is, and maybe this is going to have an impact on how Conor comes out in his fight in a couple weeks. That one's coming up. But getting back to the Gane Volkov fight, Gane, he's the quicker guy. He's a kickboxer by trade, so one would think that he'd be able to get around those long leg kicks of Volkov. Gane, he's the better striker, but Volkov, he's the more experienced fighter, especially when it comes to an octagon, like I said. He may be able to corner Gane and land some good shots, so, you know, around Gane's guard when he gets him into the corner, because he'll be able to use that octagon a little bit better. But don't forget, he did beat the fuck out of Overeem, and he beat the shit out of Harris, both start to finish. But look where both of those guys are now. Walt Harris, that fight was following the death, or the murder, should you say, of his daughter, and he said that he was overly emotional and kind of unprepared, and that wasn't the best showing of him. So that's one of Volkov's signature wins at heavyweight, since he put on extra weight. And then he's got Overeem, who's no longer in the UFC. So if those are the two fights and the two showings that you're going to hang your hat on, you really don't want it to be against two guys who are really – Harris is winless since and was in a bad showing there, and Overeem not in the UFC anymore. Gane's undefeated. He gets better every time we see him. He has a big win over Biggie Boy, which, you know, he did thoroughly win that fight. It just wasn't exciting. Biggie Boy just had a great performance over Augusto Sakai. You know, Gane has submission wins. He's got KO wins. He got decision wins, all against good competition, both inside the UFC and outside of it. We've seen him evade shots well with like a high guard. We've seen him slip shots. We've seen him use distance. We've seen him unload some KO power and have some sneaky submission ability as well. I think he gets it done here, and he puts himself into the title contender category. I mean, the dude moves around on his toes like he's a middleweight or he's a welterweight. And since Volkov has gained weight. He hasn't gone a full 5, so we haven't seen the cardio from him. He is a little bit slower. And at the end of the day, when you watch these two guys fight, you can really tell the difference between their striking ability. And when, they each fought guys around like the 10 number rank in the division, both about a year and a half ago or so for both of them. Gane masterfully beat Junior Dos Santos. He made him look terrible. And then Volkov went off and actually lost a unanimous decision to Curtis Blades. Now, if you want to compare Curtis Blades and JDS, that's fine. But at the time, both of those guys were ranked right around each other. And we saw the large discrepancy in how those fights turned out with Gane and Volkov. So I think Gane is win this one. I think he's going to win it impressively. And, I think Cyril Gane for sure.
Yeah, I want to take everything you said, put it into a tweet, and then just retweet it out there to the world because that was all perfect. Very good analysis on why Cyril Gane is going to win. Now I'm going to tell you why he's going to – no, just kidding. I'm going with Cyril Gane here too. That's my guy. And now one thing to take away from that that fight against Jairzinho Rozenstruik, a.k.a. Biggie Boy. Now, that was one of the most uneventful fights of the year. No doubt about it. You see heavyweights go out there that are known for standing and banging. You would think that there would be a big knockout in that fight. But the fact that there wasn't really speaks to the guys' respect for each other. The fact that Jairzinho Rozenstruik really knew that Cyril Gane is an incredible counter striker. He's got it together on his feet. Was able to walk Biggie Boy down to the cage and, really just not let Biggie Boy do what he wanted to him like he's done to so many other people. So if you have a guy like Rozenstruik, who I may have called, may not have called at some point, one of the best kickboxers in the heavyweight division, afraid of you, that really does speak volumes to how good you are on your feet. Now, yeah, you said he moves around. I mean, Gane, dude, the guy looks like he could dance like Valentina Shevchenko the way that he moves. It's really impressive. He's like a little ballerina out there on his toes. It's not a little ballerina. That could come off as insulting and, attacking his masculinity, but –
Gigantic ballerina.
Yes, gigantic ballerina. That man can move.
He looks like The Rock in The Tooth Fairy.
Yes, accurate. Very accurate. And so also another thing to take away from that Rozenstruik fight is you saw how aggressive Rozenstruik came out after that one. And it's because he knew that it was an uneventful performance. He also went up against Augusto Sakai, who really was not anywhere near Cyril Gane's level. But now you have to wonder, is Cyril Gane going to look at that prior performance and say, I also have to now be a little bit more aggressive? I would like an aggressive Cyril Gane, especially against a guy like Volkov, who's known for trying to walk you down and walk you back to the cage. That would be a fun fight to watch if we had an aggressive Cyril Gane. I mean, the guy is huge. I think Volkov is the tallest heavyweight in the division, and Cyril Gane's coming in at number 2, and somehow Cyril Gane still has that reach advantage. So this could be very entertaining if it's an aggressive fight. Volkov has incredible footwork. Gane's is just better. We've also never seen Gane ever gas out, which you mentioned Volkov gaining weight. Dude, have you ever seen Gane not breathe from his nose in these fights? Like, he doesn't take his mouth open. He doesn't open his mouth and take those, like, aggressive, deep breaths like he's trying to survive out there.
He looks scarily similar in the 5th as he did in the 1st.
Yeah. Like, you could have him in a 10-round fight, and I still think he would look good going into rounds 8, 9, and 10.
Mm-hmm.
So, with all that being said, if Gane maintains this cardio that he has now and Volkov somehow gasses out, I think you could even see a fight where Gane tries to take Volkov down to the ground because, like you mentioned, he does have an incredible ground game. He has a few submission wins under his belt. I mean, the dude's 31. He's 8-0. 31, still pretty young for the UFC. 8-0, beautiful record. I have a feeling he comes out of this one 9-0. Cyril Gane, let me check these odds real quick. Cyril Gane is the favorite at minus 155. The perennial contender, Alexander Volkov, is plus 125. Now, I could see why somebody would be taking Volkov in this one. He's got the name. He's got the history. People watch Gane's last fight. I just think Gane's so put together. He's so good, and he's so fresh. He's so young. It's almost hard to go against him in this one. So, Yeah, I'm rolling with Cyril Gane. Minus 155 right now. It looks like it's sitting about. That's not a bad line to take straight. 155 to win 100. I don't hate it. The risk isn't crazy. I think this will go to decision, and will go the distance. So I'm seeing an over/under rounds right now. Oof. Over/under rounds is at 4.5. That's what I'm looking at right now. So if you're really feeling the decision like I am, I think I'll be throwing a little bit on that over rounds. I can't see this being finished. Like, both of these guys, they complement each other well. Gane's got great submissions. Volkov has good submission defense. They're both very good on their feet. I don't see either one of them getting knocked out or submitted, but I think it'll be another clear decision win for Cyril Gane. Mitch, with all that being said, what are you thinking?
Yeah, Keith, you actually brought up the point that I was going to bring up, that Cyril Gane is undefeated still. I really do feel like this man has a future in the heavyweight division, just with his athleticism. The fact that he doesn't get gas, which is pretty rare in heavyweights. And you mentioned how he trains with all the top camps in the world. With all that in factor, I do think Cyril Gane will come out of this victorious. Not to discredit Volkov at all. I think this is almost more like a gatekeeper match in the UFC's eyes, versus like, all right, here's an established name, Cyril Gane, like, you're rising up the ranks really quickly. Beat this guy. Like, this is like a prove it. Like, can you like hang with the big boys, or are you just like a flash in the pan? But I think that Gane is the real deal. So I'm picking Gane this fight.
Absolutely. I think we're all going to be correct on this one. Knock on wood. Because you never know with that guy Volkov, Sometimes he does some crazy stuff, but yeah, he's kind of on the ass end of his career, where you did mention gatekeeper terminology. I love to use that consistently, and yeah, Volkov is that guy now, because he's not going up for a belt anytime soon. Francis Ngannou versus Volkov, give me Francis every single time, probably minus 500, but yeah, Extreme Couture. If that's where Gane is training out of still, because that's where Francis is currently.
No, it's not. No. This is not Extreme Couture. This is it's MMA Factory out of France. Okay. But it was the team that Francis was on before he went to Extreme Couture.
Well, you know what? If you give a guy like Francis his start, pretty much, and you help mold him into that guy, I can't see why they can't do that for Cyril Gane. MMA Factory does have a great history of bringing those guys, especially out from like Europe and people like Francis that seek refuge in Europe. So I'm definitely rolling with Cyril Gane out of MMA Factory. Love that gym. Love what they do over there. So, they prepare their guys well. And I think that Cyril Gane is coming into this fight just as prepared as Francis Ngannou would be, would he still be with MMA Factory. So, do you guys have any last-minute things that you want to say before we wrap this episode up?
I mean, I just want to tell you guys, thank you so much for having me. I had a blast just listening and just seeing you guys talk UFC. So I really do appreciate the time, you guys.
Well, we're very happy to hear that, man. You thrived. You were a great guest this week. I'm hoping that maybe you bring some more eyes to this fight card that doesn't have as much, high-level household names as prior. And even if that doesn't happen, Mitch, you were a fantastic guest. You absolutely thrived. You got into it with us. Love it. Great picks out of you, kid. It was excellent seeing you again.
Hey, you too, man. Always a pleasure, brother.
Yeah, I think we have another recurring guest here. Tom, what are you about to say?
I was just going to say, let's run through our picks real quick.
Yes.
So, with me, I'm riding with you. I have Julia Avila. I also have Kennedy Nzechukwu. That's the undercard. We have Renato Moicano, Tim Means, Andre Fili, Hayoni Barcelos, OSP, and Cyril Gane.
Okay, yeah, see, I've got all the same as you there, except I am rolling with Timur Valiev, and I'm rocking with Tanner Boser instead of OSP. So those are my two where I differ with Tom. I think, Mitch, I'm almost positive. Oh, you don't have Timur. You have...
I have Barcelos. Yes. Then I also have Tanner Boser.
Yep, I went with Boser as well. That's mine. I'm locking it in right now. At least
locking it in.
Yep. But the only way that you're truly going to find out last-minute picks, if we do decide to switch them up, that'll be on our Twitters down here. You follow us on Instagram. We have our @PickandFights Instagram. We also have the one for our main page with everybody contributing to it. All of our, we got Pick and Roll. That's our basketball guy. We got Pick and Corners for lacrosse. We have a currently unnamed golf program that we're running on there so far, but that guy did pick John Ram to win the U.S. Open, so stay tuned for his picks going forward.
Hey, can I just add to that real quick? I actually threw 20 on John Ram because I saw a pick. I was like, I'll see how it goes. One quick shoot 20 right there.
So Mitch is stacking bread with picking winners, and you could
absolutely.
You could be at home too. So all of our picks are up on our website, pickandwinners.org. That's the place you'll find us. That's our new home on the interweb. So, guys, thanks for being with me. Thanks for joining us tonight, Mitch. Tom, pleasure seeing you as always. Can't wait to get together in person and grab a couple beers, kid.
Take it easy.
Have a good night, guys.